Hi there, I'm Darlene. And a few weeks ago, I opened a wedding invitation that didn't have my name on it, even though I paid for it. They said it was a curated event. My sister called it a vibe, and apparently I didn't fit. But the worst part wasn't being left out. It was realizing they never planned to include me in the first place. Why do families keep you close just long enough to make you useful, then push you out when the pictures start? Let me ask you, have you ever felt invisible in a room full of people who used to call you family? The morning felt too quiet. I stood in the kitchen of my old family home in Savannah, Georgia, watching the dust twirl through shafts of light that leaked between the blinds. The coffee maker gurgled its last breath, filling the room with warmth that somehow didn't reach my skin. On the counter, near the napkin holder, was a pristine white envelope, thick, expensive, sealed with gold foil. My name wasn't on the front, just Mr. and Mrs. Gerald Keegan and family. That phrase always had a way of excluding the one person who made it all still function. I opened it slowly, carefully, like maybe it would self-correct mid-tear and remember me. Inside was an invitation embossed with rose gold ink. Monica's wedding, the date, the venue, the promise of an unforgettable evening among cherished guests. I stared at it, reading it twice, 3 times, searching for a slip of the pen, a side note, an RSVP card with my name on it. Nothing. Mom breezed in, her heels clicking softly against the floorboards. "Oh, that came yesterday," she said, pouring herself coffee. "Isn't it lovely?" "Whose is it?" I asked, holding it up. She gave me a look like I'd asked if the sky was blue. "Ours, of course. We're all invited." I nodded, placing the card back down. Something inside me folded with it. That night, I lay on the couch in my apartment above the bridal shop. The lights were off except for the blue hue of my phone screen. I scrolled through Instagram out of habit. Monica had posted something. I tapped. A photo of the same invitation, nestled in velvet, lit with candles, captioned, "The final list is set. Only the ones who light up the room. My favorite people." She tagged 10 names, friends from college, her fiancé, our parents, Leo, not me. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. The comments poured in like confetti. "So exclusive! Can't wait! Honored to be part of your day!" I tapped the back button and sat there staring at my own reflection in the screen, wondering when it became this clear. It wasn't an oversight. It was a decision. I rose without turning off the phone. In my workroom, the wedding gown I had restored for Monica hung on a mannequin. White satin, lined with lace salvaged from our mother's own dress. I reached out and touched the beadwork along the hem. My hands had bled into that gown. I remembered Monica calling me one night 6 weeks ago, crying over vendor costs. I wired the deposit the next morning. They still needed my money, just not me. I returned to the living room, unlocked my phone, and without thinking, deleted Instagram. The silence that followed was colder than I expected. I folded the invitation in half, crisp and clean, and slipped it back into the envelope. No tears, no loud music, no flurry of questions or confrontations. This is how it begins, isn't it? Not with shouting, with silence. I found out about the wedding planning group chat from Leo. We were standing near the grill during a family weekend lunch, the kind of day where the air smells like barbecue sauce and pine needles. And the only music is the clinking of cheap silverware on plastic plates. He glanced at his phone, chuckled, then said, "Did you see what Monica posted in the planning chat? That cake mock-up was wild." I blinked. "Which chat?" He froze. "Oh, you're not in it?" His voice dropped an octave like he was stepping on something fragile. I smiled. I said, "Oh, I think I missed it." But the truth sank in fast, no cushioning. I wasn't missed. I was never added. Monica had created a group named Wedding Core Team. That's what Evelyn called it later when I asked, careful not to sound hurt. It's mostly her close circle. You know how she gets when she wants things streamlined. Streamlined. That's a clean word for cutting out. Apparently it included her friends from Atlanta, her fiancé, the planner, our mom, and even Leo. Just not the woman who wired over $6,000 for flowers last week. The same woman who had already paid the venue deposit before the save the dates even existed. No one had noticed, or maybe they had, and said nothing. 2 days later, I got an email from Monica. No greeting. Just a PDF with a vendor invoice and a single line. Can you just forward this to your contact? No thank you. No question about how I felt about the new vendor. No update on how the florist meeting went. No name in the salutation. Just a task. A transaction. A silent assumption. I paid it. Of course I did. But this time the motion felt different. My hand hesitated above the submit button longer than it should have. Something clenched in my gut. Not because the money was too much, but because the silence was. They didn't talk to me. They just pressed a button. It was like being a hidden wire behind a curtain. Useful. Necessary. Unseen. Later that night, I sat by the window of my sewing room, the streetlight casting dim streaks across Monica's veil as it hung from the dress form. I remembered a birthday when we were kids. I made her a card, glitter-glued and crooked, and she'd said I was her best friend. She told everyone I was her hero because I could thread a needle faster than anyone. Now I was the girl who answered invoices, the convenient one, not the sister, not the friend, just the resource. I whispered, just loud enough for the silence to hear, "You don't hide the people you love." That same night, I opened Instagram again, almost against my better judgment. Monica had posted a story, a boomerang of her and her planner team clinking champagne flutes, standing in a well-lit studio, surrounded by mood boards and pastel swatches. The caption read, "Final touches. Couldn't ask for a better team. #grateful." Every face in the frame was tagged, every smile curated, every name there, except mine. I turned off the sound, watched their laughter move silently, and tapped the screen to exit. I wasn't forgotten. I was intentionally erased. The studio was still. I sat hunched over the hem of Monica's gown, coaxing the last edge of lace into place. The thread caught slightly on my thumbnail, a sign I'd been too tired to buff it smooth last night. The lace was hand-stitched, salvaged from the bodice of our mother's wedding dress, a piece Evelyn kept in a box wrapped in tissue paper, with a label that read, "Her Day." I stitched through that label, literally, carefully, silently. The sewing machine buzzed a low, familiar hum, filling the room with a kind of peace that had nothing to do with happiness. When I finally leaned back and let out a breath, the air felt heavier, as if it understood something I didn't want to say out loud. "It's beautiful," I whispered, and for a fleeting second, I was proud. Monica arrived that afternoon with 2 of her friends, girls I'd met only once, who wore heels indoors and perfume that lingered longer than their attention spans. She breezed in, tossing her purse on my cutting table. "Let's do this quick. I have brunch reservations," she chirped. I nodded and motioned her behind the curtain. She stepped into the gown like she'd been born in it. It fit perfectly. I moved to zip the back, but her hand stopped me. "I've got it," she said, laughing. One of her friends jumped in to help, and I stepped away, pretending to fuss with a loose thread on the table. As she twirled in the mirror, someone asked, "Where did you find this? It's stunning." Monica waved a hand. "Oh, just someone local. I found it through a vintage contact. I barely had to do anything to it." I stood there, still, quiet. She wore what I made. But erased that, I made it. I didn't say a word. I just watched as she posed for photos, the flash bouncing off fabric I had restored under a single lamp with throbbing wrists and blurry eyes. The next morning, I was in the studio again, trying to catch the right angle of the dress in natural light. The room glowed softly. I adjusted the tripod, lifted my phone, and clicked twice. Evelyn appeared at the doorway, holding a small tin of tea. Her voice was low, meant to sound sweet. "Don't keep too many pictures, honey. It's her dress now." I lowered the phone. She smiled faintly, walked away. I remembered being 16, sitting cross-legged on the kitchen floor, sewing a patch onto Monica's jacket after her first heartbreak. She sobbed so hard she couldn't unzip it herself. I stitched through the tears, sealing in comfort, one loop at a time. I had always sewn for warmth. Now I wasn't even allowed to touch the memory. That evening, I considered posting one photo to my shop's website. Just one. For my portfolio. For me. But something in my chest pulled back. You don't share what was never yours. I opened my gallery, hovered over the image, and hit delete. My screen went black, and for a moment, I saw only my reflection. The gown was gone the next morning. She must have picked it up while I was out. There was no thank you note, no call, not even a text. Just an empty rack and a single pin left on the floor. I picked it up with 2 fingers and held it in my palm. It still had a strand of thread attached, the same color I'd spent hours matching to the bodice. They want the fabric, not the hands that made it. The invitation came through a text. Food tasting this Saturday, 2 p.m. You're welcome to come if you're free. Bring something sweet if you want. I baked an apple pie. Homemade crust, lattice top, brown just enough to be proud of. I carried it in with both hands, the scent of cinnamon following me through the front door of our parents' house. The laughter started before I made it to the dining room. The table was already full, long and dressed in a white runner with name cards tucked in little gold holders. Every seat was taken. No one looked up. I set the pie on the sideboard and stood there for a moment, waiting for someone to notice. No one did. So I went into the pantry and pulled out a folding stool. I placed it at the very end of the table, wedged between the buffet and a cabinet door. My knees touched wood, and my plate balanced on my lap like I was a waitress on break. Monica stood up halfway through the second course, glass raised. "I just want to thank everyone who helped make this happen," she said, beaming. "Your support means the world to me." She listed names, her fiancé, her planner, her college roommate who flew in to help set the tone. Not mine. Across the table, Leo glanced my way, just once, then looked down quickly, like eye contact might burn. No one asked if I wanted seconds. Dessert arrived, miniature tarts from a local patisserie. My pie stayed untouched. No knife, no comment. Then Monica laughed, loud enough for the whole table to hear, and said, "Doesn't Darlene look like one of those Michelin tasters reviewing fine dining? All serious and mysterious." The table burst into giggles. I smiled politely, even added a fake little chuckle. Inside, I froze. My mind floated back to a childhood Thanksgiving. I was 11, Monica was 7. There weren't enough seats at the table, so I sat on the ottoman next to the fireplace. Dad said, "You don't mind, right? You're the oldest." Same seat, different reason. After the meal, I helped clear the dishes. Monica said thanks without looking up from her phone. The room emptied quickly, everyone chatting about what time hair appointments were scheduled for the big day. People left in pairs, in little clouds of perfume and practiced joy. I stood alone in the driveway, wind lifting the edge of my cardigan. I looked at my reflection in the car window, slightly distorted, oddly small. They invite my wallet, not my presence. That night, back home, I stared at the wedding date on my calendar. It was circled in soft pencil, months old. The loop looked faded now, like it belonged to a different version of me. I picked up a red pen and drew one clean X across the day. If I'm not at the table, maybe I'm not meant to be in the room. The numbers stared back at me like an accusation. $39,620. That was the total so far. I had written it down in pencil, then inked it after realizing it wasn't changing, only rising. Dress materials, catering prepay, florist balance, invitations she couldn't pay for until I stepped in. I sat in my sewing room, the overhead light too dim to comfort, the tea beside me long gone cold. I sipped it anyway. "They don't even know," I whispered. Though deep down I was starting to believe they did know. They just didn't care. At lunch that weekend, Monica stood up between courses, wine glass in hand, and announced she wanted to make a toast. "To everyone who has helped bring this vision to life, thank you," she beamed. "My incredible fiancé, our friends who've rallied around us, and the florist who's been a dream." She clinked glasses with Leo and her best friend Haley. Evelyn dabbed her eye. I sat at the far end of the table. My fork was still halfway to my mouth when I lowered it. No one looked my way, not even a nod, not even a pause. I caught Evelyn glancing at me for half a second before she turned away, busying herself with rearranging napkins. Invisible money, invisible me. Later that afternoon, I was folding linen runners on the backyard table when I overheard Monica chatting with her planner. They stood near the arbor, giggling over centerpiece mock-ups. "Your sister's the one who helped fund all this?" the planner asked. Monica laughed. Not loudly, but with that polite condescension she'd mastered over time. "Oh, Darlene. She does hands-on stuff. Works in textiles or something. Really good with her hands." That's all I was. Hands. Not the one who bought the flowers. Not the one who paid the deposits. Not the one who patched their holes when the budget cracked. Just effort, not investment. I folded the last runner and placed it gently in the crate, feeling something settle inside me. Not pain, not even surprise. Recognition. It was drizzling when I walked home. Savannah always had a way of wrapping storms in silence, the kind of rain that didn't demand shelter, only made you quieter. At home, I changed into dry clothes and sat in front of my laptop, opened a blank document and typed the title, Final Transfer. I didn't send it, not yet, but I left it open on the screen, like a candle quietly burning down to its base. I stared at the cursor for a long time. "I'm not just their purse," I said into the room, slow and firm. "I'm their damn foundation." At 9:13 p.m., Monica's text popped up. "Hey, cake balance is due Friday. You've got that, right? TX. No, please. No, how are you?" I copied the message, pasted it into the open document, and under it I typed one line in bold. "This is where it ends." It was one of those gentle Savannah afternoons where the humidity sat politely on your skin, and the garden seemed to hum. I arrived at my parents' house carrying Monica's altered veil, wrapped in ivory cloth, pressed and folded like a peace offering I wasn't sure I believed in. Evelyn met me at the door and said we could sit out back. She'd brewed hibiscus tea, chilled, served in the glasses we only used when someone died or got engaged. We sat on the porch swing. I handed her the veil. She didn't open it, just rested it in her lap like it might bruise. After a few sips, she said softly, "I know you want to help, but don't crowd your sister. She needs space." I blinked, not because I was shocked, because the timing was so casual. Space? For Monica? I wanted to ask where this concern for space was when I drove 3 hours in a thunderstorm to help her move out of her ex's place. Or when she lost her job and slept on my couch for a month, sobbing through frozen waffles. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I nodded. Inside, something hollowed out. I had always been the one called when things cracked, when nobody else had the time or patience. Now I was suddenly too visible. It wasn't just exclusion anymore. It was containment. Later that evening, as I was gathering my purse, Gerald offered to walk me to my car. He didn't say much until we reached the gravel driveway. He shifted his weight, looking at the sky like it held better words. "Your mother, she just wants everything to flow well. Monica's got a vision, you know. Try not to distract from that." I smiled faintly and replied, "I wasn't planning to wear neon." He chuckled, but it sounded more like a sigh. Neither of us said anything else. At home, I stood in front of the fridge and stared at the note stuck beneath a magnet shaped like a peach. "Pick up Monica's cake." I peeled it off and tossed it in the trash. The fridge door swung closed with more weight than it should have. They hadn't just agreed with her. They adjusted themselves to her. That was what finally cracked something in me. Not her wedding, not her exclusion, not even the way she used my money without blinking. It was watching my parents bend around her demands like warm wax, reshaping what family looked like until I no longer fit the mold. That night, an email landed in my inbox from Monica. Subject, final photo lineup confirmed. I opened it out of habit, not curiosity. A PDF attached with color-coded sections, bride's side, groom's side, friends, no family. I closed the laptop without reading another line. If this is harmony, I choose dissonance. I arrived with the last of the table runners, ironed, folded, tied with a piece of twine like they mattered. The house was buzzing with the kind of pre-wedding energy that makes everyone move faster but say less. Monica didn't look up when I entered. Evelyn took the runners, smiled a tight smile and said, "Sweetie, let's let the girls handle this." I didn't ask what this was. Through the sliding glass doors, I saw them gathering in the backyard for photos. Monica stood in the center, radiant in a white silk robe, surrounded by bridesmaids in matching blush. Evelyn fussed with the flower girl's crown. Gerald wore a vest that matched the groomsmen's ties. I hovered near the doorway, holding a tote of extra linens, waiting for someone, anyone, to say, "Come on out, Darlene." The photographer called out, "On three!" I took a small step forward. Monica turned her head, froze. "Let's just keep it intimate," she said. "Fewer faces is cleaner." Her voice didn't tremble. She didn't sound cruel, just decisive. I stopped. I didn't argue. I didn't retreat dramatically. I walked back through the kitchen, out the side door, and into my car. They want me near, but not visible. The next evening, I stopped by the house again to drop off receipts. The kitchen was quiet. No one was home. I walked down the hallway toward the den, intending to leave the envelope on the console. That's when I saw it. A canvas print 3 feet wide, hung just above the fireplace. The pre-wedding photo, Monica in the center, eyes bright, smile flawless. Gerald and Evelyn flanking her like royal advisors. The bridesmaids posed like petals in bloom. My face was nowhere. I stared at it long enough to notice how well lit the frame was, how deliberate the placement seemed. Behind me, Evelyn's voice drifted in. "Isn't it lovely? Everyone looks so polished." I turned. She was holding a dish towel, looking not at me, but at the picture. I nodded once, nothing more. That night, lying in bed, I replayed it all. Not just the photo, but the moment I'd stepped forward and been stopped. Not with a hand, not with a no, but with a choice. Some families write you out slowly, not with fights, but with framing. I unlocked my phone, opened a half-written message to Monica that simply read, "I felt," then I deleted it. I scrolled to her contact and changed the name to Monica Bride Only. The next morning, I walked to my sewing table, opened a fresh invoice template, and typed across the top in bold, "Final reconciliation, no balance remaining." I hit print. The machine hummed softly, the paper sliding out like a whisper. I woke up at 2:12 a.m., as if something had tapped me on the shoulder. The house was still, the kind of stillness that didn't comfort. It warned. I sat up, reached for my glasses, and padded barefoot to the kitchen. I didn't bother turning on the lights. The glow of my laptop was enough. The invoice was still open from the other night. Monica's cake balance, a line item that used to sting. Now it just sat there like a forgotten charge on a debt account. Final balance, $3,200. I highlighted the line, deleted it. In its place, I typed, "Final decision made." I opened a blank email, typed slowly, like every word needed air before landing. "Dear Monica, I will no longer be contributing financially to the wedding. I wish you well." No emotion, no explanation, no disclaimers. I CC'd Evelyn and Gerald, not because I needed backup, but because I wanted no secrets left for anyone to twist. I hit send. It was quiet afterward. Quieter than the house. Quieter than my breathing. And yet, it felt like something loud had just left the room. I sat back. My shoulders dropped for the first time in weeks. I whispered, "No more unspoken debts." At 8:43 a.m., my phone buzzed. Monica. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. "Hey, I saw your email. If we added you to the guest list, could you still help with the cake and flowers? You know, make it right?" Make it right. She meant, put it back the way it was. She meant, be useful again. She did not mean, "I'm sorry." I deleted the voicemail. My thumb didn't hesitate this time. They think I'm mad. I'm done. Later that day, she sent a text. "Look, this day is about aesthetic, you know that. You don't really fit the vibe, but I do appreciate the help." I read it twice. The punctuation was careful. No exclamation points, no love you, just cold precision. I turned off my phone, set it on the porch rail, and watched the wind ruffle the trees in the distance. Then I picked it back up and blocked her number. I didn't need to hear another version of the same script. In my workroom, the embroidery for the bride and groom banner still lay folded on the corner table, half finished, thread waiting like a sentence never completed. I opened the drawer, placed the fabric inside, and locked it. I gave them everything. Now I give them nothing. The rain started just before sunrise. Soft, steady drops tapping against my window, like someone gently reminding me not to forget. I sat at the kitchen table, cradling a mug of coffee that had gone cold too quickly, staring at the calendar where Monica's wedding day had once been circled in lavender ink. I erased it with the side of a pencil, leaving behind a faint smudge. Leo's text came in at 9:03 a.m. They had to move it to Grandma's backyard. Venue refused to hold it without full payment. I read it twice, then tucked the phone into a drawer. By noon, the stories had begun to ripple in. Through Evelyn's clipped phone calls, through vague Facebook updates. The florist never showed. The bakery claimed the balance had been voided. Guests arrived confused, umbrellas snapping open like question marks. Monica cried in the hallway. Gerald paced. Evelyn passed out towels. No one called me. I folded a load of laundry, humming to myself as I sorted socks. There was peace in the ordinary, something solid in the smallness of doing one thing completely. I didn't destroy anything. I just stopped saving it. The next morning, I opened the shop an hour early. A young woman walked in, clutching a delicate veil in both hands. "It was my grandmother's," she said. "I want to wear it, but it's so fragile, I'm afraid it won't survive." I took it from her gently, ran my fingers over the fine netting. "We'll strengthen it from the inside," I said. As she talked, about colors, about her mother-in-law's unsolicited opinions, I listened. I stitched. I didn't offer much advice, just one line, spoken quietly as I smoothed the fabric. "Make space for yourself. Don't let anyone frame you out." When she left, I pulled out a new invoice pad. For the first time, I signed with a full name, Darlene Keegan, owner. A week later, I returned to my parents' house to drop off a ceramic mixing bowl Monica had loaned me last Christmas. No one was home. The place felt smaller, as if the walls had shrunk without anyone noticing. I passed the hallway and paused. The wedding photo canvas still hung in the same spot above the sideboard, but the edges had begun to curl from moisture. The ink bled slightly near Monica's shoulder, her smile half faded under the glare of the light. I stood there for a full minute. Then I raised my phone and took a photo, not out of malice, not to share, just to keep. Proof that being invisible doesn't mean I wasn't there. That night, I sewed in the quiet, a new fabric, a new piece. No more initials stitched on the back, just a label, Keegan and Company. My phone lit up. Monica. I didn't touch it, just let the screen glow, then fade. Some doors don't need to be slammed, they just don't open again. Sometimes the people who say they love us the loudest are the same ones who expect us to stay quiet when it matters most. I spent years mistaking usefulness for belonging, thinking if I gave enough, helped enough, stayed silent enough, they would see me. But silence doesn't buy respect, it only rents space in someone else's story. Walking away wasn't easy. It never is when the roots run deep. But protecting your peace sometimes means standing up, not with fists, but with absence. If they don't make room for you at the table, it's okay to build your own, and it's okay if it only seats one for now. So what about you? Have you ever felt erased in a space you helped create? What would you do differently today if you stopped waiting for permission? If this video spoke to you, if it reminded you of a time you stayed quiet when you should have been seen, drop a 1 inch in the comments or tell me where you're watching from. And if it didn't connect, I still want to hear your story. What would you have done in my shoes? Don't forget to subscribe if you'd like more stories that speak from the quiet places inside us, the ones we don't always show but know are there. End of video.